Hi there. Welcome to another edition of TokStocks. I'm your host, Keir Reynolds, and today we're lucky enough to have Jon Deluce, CEO, President, and Director of Abitibi Metals Corp. Trades on the CSE with a ticker AMQ. How you doing today, Jon?
Great. I appreciate you having me back.
Yeah, I think this is maybe our third or fourth interview, maybe a fourth interview. We've been covering the company since 2024, and my gosh, you guys have come a long way. And you've actually, since we last chatted in January, I guess, my gosh, time flies, 6 or 7 months ago.
Crazy.
There's been a whole bunch of things going on with your company. You've really sort of been ticking off the milestones and accomplishments. So look forward to kind of unpacking that today. I think we're both a bit pressed for time. So why don't we kind of get into the meat of it here? Maybe for those of my audience that don't really know who you are and your background, could you just give a quick overview on who you are?
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, my name's Jon Deluce. I'm the CEO and founder of Abitibi, member of a family office based out of Toronto that stretches across the airline, real estate, and mining sector. So we're well positioned alongside our shareholders. We have over $14 million invested in Abitibi Metals, including $7 million in the latest financing that we did alongside Discovery Silver in May. So very excited about the opportunity of B26 and Abitibi, which is really showcased around our B26 polymetallic deposit that we optioned and now own 100% of from the Quebec government. So very unique opportunity in the fact that this had never been in a public company prior to our involvement. But now I think we started with yourself and audience in 2024, and it was a slower start and it was a very unknown asset. And I think we're starting to get recognized, but we're confident it's just the beginning. So there's lots to talk about today.
Well, your team has really changed. You've really been on the recruiting trail the last while, and you've started to add some great people. So we'll get into that. But why don't you just give us you kind of give us a little overview? What do you have? What is B26? You said polymetallic. Can you give us a quick overview on the deposit and I think you've got a 43101 MRE resource. You've done a couple, if I'm not mistaken. Give us a bit of an overview on just what is this beast that you got.
Yeah, so B26 is a polymetallic hybrid VMS. So it's 85% is hosted within a copper gold stringer zone with 15% within a massive sulfide zinc silver. So what does that mean? Copper gold is one of the most sought after deposits in the market, and VMSs are higher grade, high potential cash flow assets, but the average size of them is closer to 5 million tons. And the average camp is 5 million tons and a combination of 5 to 10 to 20 in the case of Matagami Lake. But what's rare to find is these VMS camps that host much larger deposits like the Selbaie mine, which is next door to B26. That was a 60 million ton deposit, produced 53 million tons over 20 years. And that's the type of potential which we see the pipeline for B26, but also for the camp that we're exploring in. So B26 is primarily copper, strong gold, silver credit. It is a combined 25 million ton resource split almost 50-50 indicated and inferred at 2.15% copper equivalent at the resource February 2026 resource input prices, which was $450 copper, $2,500 gold, $30 silver. You take it at spot, it's 2.5%. And only 9% of our most recent resource update was related to commodity prices. So I think really the opportunity that we have is this is a continuous 1.7 kilometer resource down to, on the western side, 1,100 meters vertical. We bought this off the Quebec government, truly open in all directions, and we think we're scratching the surface of a much larger system. With our vision from now until a year from now, that we're able to consolidate an entire district to combine multiple developments that feed a central processing plant. I think we've been able to evidence that. We'll get that into the fact that we bought the remaining 20% interest of B26, but that also came with a 10-year right of first refusal on the Carheil and Wagosic projects, which is, I think, a key catalyst for investors to look out for as we continue to both build value at B26, but look at the larger picture of how can we build a camp around our flagship asset at B26.
Great. Well, you that's a lot to unpack. Maybe I'll just comment on a couple of points for my audience. Yeah, traditionally VMS deposits, the knock on them is they're pretty small. So you have to try to find something in this modern era of mining that's like, the juice has to be worth the squeeze. There has to be enough. It's usually, over 20 million tons is kind of the start. You guys have now crossed over 25 million tons if you were able to add the indicated and the inferred side of the resource. So you're definitely well on your way. That's definitely caught my attention. And then what also caught my attention is you guys have been making some moves in terms of really starting to bulk up your team. And you've been bulking up your team with people that are, that are either mine builders or people that have worked for successful mining operations. Maybe you could cover outside of yourself, who are some of the key sort of members of the team that have joined you over the last year or so?
Yeah, it's a good question. And really, we've been able to assemble a world-class team that is all working hard to move forward what we think is an incredible opportunity at B26. But compared to last year when we spoke and we had just started on this path in January, is last year we were solely focused on exploration with the view that we were nearing critical mass. In our opinion now, we're at critical mass and we are now moving both the exploration and development fronts forward congruently. Very similar to what was done by our new COO, Dave Bernier at Foran. He was the COO between 2021 and 2025, taking McIlvenny Bay from PFS to commercial production, delivering $155 million in federal government grants and permitting the mine in 18 months. So he saw those parallels between B26 and McIlvenny Bay. So we've brought really a talented and an excellent leader of the company that brings his track record across building multiple mines in both Saskatchewan, Ontario, and Quebec. Still led the exploration side, led by Louis Gary P. with his track record at O3 and Noranda and Gold Anglo, strong VMS and orogenic gold background. We've also just had Keith Gorman join as CFO with his track record alongside Dave at Foran. We have a new SVP of corporate development and IR starting with a very, very strong track record of large-scale copper development. Also headlined by what is a world-class advisory team led by Craig Perry, Victor Cantore, Chris Levy, all notable shareholders of the company, in addition to Eric Callio, a common team member between both Discovery Silver and Abitibi. We have a very robust team, and there's many people I'm not mentioning, but at the end of the day, it takes many people to drive an operation like this, and we're in a very competitive market where the producers are soaking up a lot of resources and talent. So I'm very proud of the team that has come together, and I think we are planning for growth. I think the key thing is we're not standing still. We are planning for growth between B26 and acquisitions. So we're excited about what we're going to be able to accomplish with this team over the coming months and years.
Well, John, you and I have spoken a few times, and I think I was honest with you before, saying I was getting a little worried when you guys came out pretty hot when you listed. You traded up quite a bit. You maybe got a bit out ahead of your skis, not necessarily your fault, but just the exuberance and excitement of the market and some of the marquee shareholders. And then things got a little tough when people were like really looking for you to grow this asset and sort of get into that place where it looked like it, stands the chance of becoming a mine at some point. You had to sort of get your elbows up and start grinding it out in the corners and finishing your checks, and you've done a remarkable job here, really moving this thing along. So much so, like, in terms of when I think of a copper stock, I can't really think of any other company that I'd want to be a shareholder of except you guys, in terms of what you got going on, like the development sort of story, getting to that critical sort of mass. Next thing to do is hopefully you can get it over 30 million tons. We'll see. Again, Mother Nature will have to sort of play ball with you, but I think you got the team and obviously the financial sort of horsepower to kind of make that stuff happen. And you kind of mentioned something pretty interesting. You got a ROFR, or you got like something related to some other assets. Are those other sort of government assets, or what are those?
So our partners at SOQUEM, which is the Quebec exploration arm of Investment Quebec, They explore all over the province, but they have two priority projects that border B26 and surround the historical Selbaie mine. So they drilled just under 20,000 meters this winter at their Wagosic project. They've released publicly one batch of drill results so far, very encouraging. Also commenting on visuals from additional results, but really we see the potential for two deposits at Wagosic. So certainly our goal, and we've been very public, to continue to broaden and expand our partnership with the Quebec government. And it is now supported by a 10-year right of first refusal. So I think certainly we remain with the flagship asset of the camp with the high grade B26 deposit, but that looking to combine with what we see as a path with 3 additional deposits in the district. This goes from a great project to really a world-class district, and that's our goal. If I was to project out a year, I would hope to see ongoing continued exploration of B26 and development alongside budget that surrounds the larger district, trying to piece together what is a development case for a camp that feeds a central processing facility. So again, SOQUEM has done an excellent job. Without them, we wouldn't be in the position that we are in today with B26. But I think there's a chance we may be able to do it again with being positioned and expanding our partnership to be able to land a secondary large-scale VMS discovery that adds on near-term optionality in the same camp as we're operating now.
Sounds pretty exciting. Just I guess last month, back in June, you closed the loop on getting to 100% on B26. You had been able to get to about 80%, if I'm not mistaken. And there was always this looming like, oh, what's this 20%? Sometimes in the mining world, as the asset gets better, everybody, is like, I want to own more. You guys are able to get a deal done. Can you walk us through kind of the terms of that transaction to get that other 20% and get you to 100?
So the remaining terms was $5 million cash, $2 million in stock that was done at 78 cents a share. But the $5 million was offset against what they owed us under our joint venture. So the net cash payment was approximately $3.5 million. We have 2 milestones. So that transfers, they've now transferred the remaining 20% ownership. There's 2 additional performance-based payments. So $3 million cash, $3 million stock on feasibility study, and then the same payment on construction decision. But in addition to buying the 20%, we were able to cut the outstanding royalty in half. So there's only 1% NSR now outstanding as a result of that purchase of the remaining 20. And as I mentioned, it also came with a ROFR. And I think that ROFR will prove to lead to potentially a very valuable acquisition that really rounds out the overall potential of the company and the district.
Sounds great. Now, in terms of, let's talk financial position. How are you guys sitting in terms of like cash? What's your last publicly stated figure that you're able to give us?
So our estimated cash balance as of last week is just under 40 million. So we are fully funded for what will be combined this year, next year, 80,000 meters of drilling. We're funded for a potential, our next resource update, potential PEA, and also our ongoing phase 2 MET, our geotechnical studies. So there's a lot of catalysts and pipeline that we have funded for that budget, in addition to having a healthy balance sheet for acquisitions. So that was a big part of the potential use of proceeds between Discovery Silver, my family, and our existing institutional shareholders that contributed into the May financing, once again done without any warrants. So we're in an excellent financial position. We continue to do rounds at higher and higher valuations, being able to leverage Quebec critical flow through, charity flow through to limit dilution on our exploration expenditures. And again, our financings, as I just said, were without a warrant. And I think it really attracts the investor that we want for not only for today, but for 2 or 3 years from now. We want a long-term investor that sees the upside, because we still don't think, although we've had a good read rating, we think that this is a beginning, and we see the path to this growing into a billion-dollar company. So how would I summarize our shareholders today? My family office, Discovery Silver, Foran shareholders, including BD Capital. BD Capital owns 9.6% of the company and has had very successful investments across Foran and other longer term positions in the mining space, combined with the Quebec institutional funds, including La Caisse de Depot. So basically 50 to 60% of our shareholder base is within 6 or 7 people, all long-term oriented, and I think really understand the potential of what we're building.
Yeah, and your May financing came with a sort of a new strategic investor, if I'm not mistaken, Discovery Silver. What's sort of the thinking there for Discovery Silver and you guys?
So I think we've been patient to get the right strategic. We had a strategic and interested about a year and a half ago, but we were at 30 million market cap and they wanted 20% of the company. And I think it would have, with the demands of that potential investment, it would have capped the upside. And I think we were patient and understood the value. And I think we got the right strategic in at the right time. So Discovery Silver, led by Tony McCooch and Eric Callio, we've had prior success as a family office with them during our time of financing and sitting on the board of Homer Gold. So Homer was developed part of the West Timmins gold mine. It was bought out by Lakeshore Gold, which was at the time the CEO was Tony McCooch. They built that into the West Timmins gold mine. We were also shareholders of Kirkland Lake Gold and saw the types of return and their ability to bet on stuff early. And now we look at how well positioned they've been in discovery, leveraging what was a strong silver asset in Mexico to acquire the Porcupine complex from Newmont. It's the partners and it's their first strategic investment. So what do they bring to the table? They bring a long track record of making investors money. They have a prudent technical and really a skill set that captures the entire scale of exploration development. And we've had prior success with them. So it was a 9.9% investment. And we see them adding a lot of value besides just the capital that they've employed in the company.
How many shares do you have outstanding right now?
242 million shares outstanding.
And how many warrants do you have outstanding?
No warrants.
Hey, there we go. Good job. And as of today, what's sort of the market cap?
Market cap as of today is around 175 million with, as I mentioned, $40 million in cash. So still quite an attractive EV compared to what is very few high-grade polymetallic developers out there.
How much drilling are you going to do this year and next year? How many meters? I think you might have mentioned something, but just if you could go over that again.
So we're halfway through our 40,000 meter budget this year. We've paused temporarily for the forest fires, but we'll be back there as soon as we're able to. And we're funded for another 40,000 meters next year.
Wow. So about 80,000 meters between 2026 and 2027. That's fully funded.
Yes, exactly.
Excellent. And in terms of, sometimes like development stage sort of drilling, you're not obviously going to be putting out every drill assay related to 80,000 meters. What should investors expect in terms of news flow related to that, and how will they know how it's going?
Yeah, so one of our key programs from this winter was our regional drill program. So our first program outside of the main B26 deposit that covered 4 targets. So that's the next batch of results that are scheduled that will be out next week. So that will cover about 3,500 meters of regional drilling, the first time we've ever tested targets outside of the deposit, which will follow up with downhole geophysics once the stop work mandate is done. After that, we'll get back to the deposit scale. So we'll have results out every month. And as I mentioned, those are the 2 batches that are upcoming. We have 3 drills turning. We are hoping to increase with drills becoming available. So I think a pretty consistent pipeline of drill results moving towards an updated resource by the end of the year, Q1, and still working towards a potential PEA in the first quarter, combined with other corporate announcements, and including potential news on the acquisition front.
Excellent. And in terms of your job has now become multifaceted. You're building a juggernaut here. You've gone from a fairly lean, small company with a an option on a project to now owning 100% of it, having built and established a team. What's the sort of a typical day look like for you these days?
So it's turning from wearing 10 hats to wearing fewer, but I think we were marketing virtually in Australia last week, which has really motivated me to know how there's still a lot of institutional funds that don't know the Abitibi story at a time where there's been considerable liquidity from both Arizona Sonora and Foran. So my role is shifting towards being everywhere to being very focused on marketing and shareholder relationships and really getting our story out there in a market cap now that we're transitioning to larger funds. And also we're seeing a lot of generalist money now taking this pullback in both the gold and base metal sector to establish positions. So I have a very talented and hardworking team that I trust in operations and exploration, so I can focus more on the strategic and marketing side and combined with the M&A front.
In terms of copper and your sort of valuation compared to some peer comparables, if you're able to do such a thing, how should investors look at this, and what's kind of an important stat in terms of determining whether there's upside, whether you're fairly valued, and where your valuation goes as you continue to advance, as you move to getting to like pre-fees and things like that. What's something that investors should pay attention to?
I think a key metric is the valuation per pound of copper in the ground. I think there's a lot of things that go into that, but at an earlier stage, it's a good metric to measure. So we are at 9 to 10 cents per pound copper equivalent. You compare that against where the copper price is today, but you look at what is very few competitors in the space. In Canada, there's Firefly, which is closer to 40 cents, and there was Foran over $1 per pound copper equivalent. And that is within one continuous VMS ore body over 2% that is larger than 20 million tons. That's the only other two within Canada. And I think part of where you see the valuation creep from 10 to 20 to 30, 50 cents per pound is de-risking the asset, proving critical mass. And I think a lot of that hard work on de-risking exploration is behind us. Certainly it's not eliminated, but the hard work of multiple resource updates, building a very strong and targeted exploration team, combined with now taking a conservative pass on our last resource, I would argue we are closer to already at 30 million tons, looking at cutoff and impact of what would be updated commodity prices. But now it's can we deliver critical mass? I think we have a great team to be able to do that, and I think we are in the process of doing that over the coming months. And that is the baseline today. But part of the optionality is, can we make a discovery outside of B26? Are we able to consolidate the larger district? That is all upside that I think is largely unpriced, that, in my opinion, gives us the goal of becoming a billion-dollar company. And that's what we are working hard to do. And that's a team that we're building that is able to handle development across multiple assets, exploration across multiple assets, and how are we all be able to pull that all together and permit it. And I think that's a team that we've built, and what I think the market will be able to continue to start to digest over the coming months.
Well, excellent. Those are some great points. Now, in terms of Foran, oftentimes Abitibi, gets sort of brought up, and people always mention, oh, Foran could be the next Foran. Foran got acquired, got taken out. What was sort of the value that they got taken out, and how big was their VMS deposit?
So I believe the value moved a bit between opening and closing, but it was around 3.5 billion. Their stated resource at the time of acquisition was 44 million tons, but they had the Tesla Zone discovery, which was really a down dip offset extension of the main deposit. Analysts speculated that took the resource to 80 plus million tons, which I think is reasonable. So I think certainly they had, and they had just started production. So they took an aggressive exploration and development path, and I think it's something that we are mirroring. Because at the end of the day, what's the worst thing a junior can do? They can put up a for sale sign. It takes the pressure off of strategics and producers to be active and look to acquire a company like Foran at a premium that they did. Like Agnico was already 15% shareholder. Eldorado came in over the top, and it shows the demand for these type of assets, especially ones that are long life like Foran was. And I think we're in the path to being able to demonstrate with B26. Again, the Tesla discovery, which again is more of a down dip extension, came from a deeper geophysics hole. Similar to what we're trying to do, we are doing downhole, we're doing larger empty. We are going to take a deeper swing of what is the much larger scale expansion potential B26. Can we find a Tesla type extension? I think we have a good chance of doing that. And that's one of the unanswered questions that we're going to be addressing over the next 6 months.
Why don't we turn our attention here to like the copper macro and M&A sort of backdrop a bit more. So, you're obviously running this company, you're dealing in all sorts of meetings, you're attending different conferences, you're meeting with different stakeholders, you're involved. How, the world is sort of changing. There's a lot of geopolitical risk sort of out there. We're hearing a lot of this term like reshoring, not being able to rely upon sort of the globalization, outsourcing, all of these things, needing to sort of develop our own sort of resources. We're starting to see some positive movement happening here in Canada with sort of the federal and provincial governments sort of like getting more involved in helping to fund and cut some red tape. But from your perspective, from your seat in the chair running this thing, can you comment on some of that stuff? What are your thoughts in terms of copper and sort of its demand and need?
Yeah, I think certainly the geopolitical risk is coming to the forefront of where some of the producers are putting priority on assets. And we see companies like Agnico and Alamos get premiums for operating in tier one jurisdictions. So 50% of copper supply is from areas of political instability and nationalization risk. So it puts a huge premium on areas like Quebec, that you have strong government, First Nations, and secure tenure rights. At a time where the Quebec government announced over the last month, I think it's an over $1.5 billion critical metals fund to support development, combined with what is already a large programs from the federal government, including the Canada Growth Fund, that was one of the largest financiers of construction of Foran. So there's both huge support federally, support provincially, and the producers recognize that, and they're getting value for that in the market of where at a producing level, where are they getting best multiples and where they having institutional shareholders look to invest. It's within area companies that have tier one production, that there's not the risks of to throw an example out there is what happened in Panama, of one of the largest copper mines in the world. I think it took off over 3% of copper production as a result of nationalization. So it certainly is part of what positions us well, but also, again, what we're building a product that the market wants. And I think, as we've talked about, was showcased in the premium that was paid for Foran.
So in terms of, we hear a lot about, oh, we have to develop more copper in the next 20 years than we've developed in all the history of mankind. We've heard things like that. There's some pretty famous, well-known promoters out there who are very good at speaking. Where's like the big demand for copper? Is it all related to like this AI electrification? What are some of the supply uses, and why is there this mention that we are way underfunded and have under capacity in terms of copper development?
Yeah, I think the AI and data centers, the stats around the huge amounts of copper required for that development certainly adds to the supply demand deficits, combined with countries with electric vehicle requirements by 2030, 2035, 2040. And I think people forget the amount of copper required to have charging stations and infrastructure in place that it actually allows to try to reduce and go EV only. So I think there's multiple uses at a time that exploration has been severely neglected, and the frequency of discovery is down. I think I was looking last night at Arizona Sonora's presentation that was taken over recently. They did a great job of summarizing the like 10-year periods of how much copper was discovered, and it's just dropped off a cliff. So I think it makes developments that are they're much more valuable because there's just a lot of the easy ones have been found. I'm sure there's going to be a boom at some point, and then I think that's what's going to be helpful with the pickup in exploration spend. But we can't turn mines overnight. We can't make discoveries at whim, so it positions development stage assets very well.
Great. Well, why don't we wrap up here? Because I know you got places to be, and so do I. Is next sort of step here, or are you going to start doing some technical studies like a PEA on B26?
That's our goal. So we are working on an updated resource and PEA. That's targeted for the first quarter of 2027. So we are excited about that and all the drill results between now and then, combined with some of the technical inputs that go into that PEA, which is the met work, the geotechnical work to try to increase the potential stope sizes, given that we have very competent rock combined with potential bulk tonnage underground targets. So there's a lot that goes into that, but we are led by Dave. We think we can deliver a very high quality PEA that we can take to FS. So it will be well above the usual quality that a first pass study looks like.
Make sure you're conservative on that stuff, because people go through that with a fine-tooth comb. I know I don't have to tell you that, but please do. So for an investor who's just coming across Abitibi Metals for the first time, what's the single sort of takeaway that you want them to walk away from this interview here today?
I think one of the key takeaways is our goal as a management team and how we're positioned alongside every shareholder. We really decide and are very careful with where we allocate capital, of really considering the best time to finance, how do we limit dilution, where are we going to get the best return on capital. And again, it's not a guarantee. We have to employ the right people that puts us in the best position of success. So I think the key takeaway, we're very well positioned. I think overall we've built a business plan over the last 2 years that we've largely delivered against. It's not perfect. We have had delays, we have had issues, but we continuously assess where we're doing well and where we can improve to put investors in the best position of success. So we certainly appreciate your audience and appreciate your time once again.
Well, Jon, I appreciate your time. It's nice to see the company really grow up under your leadership and do what you had stated your vision was a couple of years ago. You've just been executing. You've been laser focused in terms of what you thought, and at times, we've had market cycles and ups and downs, and we just had sort of kind of a big up in terms of all the metals and sort of success. In terms of a lot of stock prices re-rating. Copper, has held up remarkably well, while there's been obviously significant pullback in some of the precious metals. So we wish you lots of good success. Hope you'll continue to come back, and look forward to catching up with you in the next couple of quarters and see where you get to. So thanks so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks again.